All right, so it's lesson 5, part 2. We're back. We've been making some useful improvements to our scaffolded site. We've fixed up our index view. We've added better inputs for our create product form. We've added a text area. We've added some placeholders. We've fixed up our labels and our headings. We've sorted our dropdown, and we've added data validation to make sure that we get a proper price value. So now we want to deal with our image upload. So how can we, both when we're creating a new product, and then we're going to need to duplicate it with a bit of extra logic actually when we're editing a product, how can we allow users to upload a picture along with that product so that photo can display in our product catalog to the customers in our store? So we're going to need to make a couple changes here to our product view in our form, and then we're going to need to make some changes and write the code in our controller to process the file upload. So first thing we're going to do is we'll go back to our create view, and on line 13 in our form, we need to add the encoding type attribute. We did this with our PHP form. Any web form that's going to allow users to upload files, it needs this enc type equals multi-part form data attribute. That goes directly in the form tag. And this attribute allows for files to be embedded in our form and transferred in binary format to the web server to be saved. So if we don't add this attribute, any file upload we add, it just gets ignored. So we're going to add that attribute to line 13, and then I'm going to come down here to line 32, and we're going to change a couple things. Instead of this ASP4, we want to change this input from a text box to a file upload control. And we're going to process this a bit differently. So we're just going to set the name equal to image and our ID also equal to image. And then I want to change the input type to type file. This will convert that standard text box into a file upload box. So I've changed line 13 with the encoding type, and I've rewritten the input on my line 32. I've put the changes in the chat for you if you need them. So now when we refresh, this image text box should become a browse button that'll open a file dialog. Which it does. I can no longer type here. I just click it and I get a file dialog box, which is what we want. So that's the form part. That's kind of the easy part. The bigger changes are going to come in the create method of our products controller in the post version, the version that runs when the user clicks create to submit the form. Okay, so we've added the encoding type and we've added our input type equals file, and we've named it image because that's going to match what's in our database. So now we'll go back to our products controller and we want to look inside our post products create. So this method in my scaffolded controller starts on line 61. The other way you can easily find it, just click your drop down at the top right, and it's the second create version that says create product product. The first create is the get that displays our form. The second version is the post that processes that form submission. So we're going to have to make first a few changes in the method signature. So the way the scaffolding code works is it's binding, it's basically linking the inputs on our form with the properties in the model. And we can see this if we look at the inputs, they all have this, we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, it has this ASP4 attribute on all our inputs. And each one of our inputs, what's happening here is our controller is connecting each input to the matching property in our model. So this is good. That means we don't have to map the fields manually. but we need to change the mapping for the image because our image file is no longer just a string that would get entered in a text box. So in this list of bound fields, I'm actually going to take the image out of here because it's not being bound automatically anymore. And we're going to add a new parameter at the end of our method. And it's a parameter using a .NET class called iFormFile. And if I mouse over, Visual Studio tells me this is an interface that represents a file sent with an HTTP request. So that's the class that we want, or the interface. And we're going to call it image because that matches our property model. So I've taken out the image parameter here, and we've added a parameter called image of type iFormFile at the end. And then if we examine the code, let's look at the scaffolded code that's here. What this is saying is, if the model state is valid, so there are no validation errors in our model, such as a negative price or a missing product name. If there are no errors with the data, we're going to add this new product to our database connection, and then we call save changes. Then we commit those changes to the database, which runs an insert in the product table, and then we're redirecting to the index page. If our model state is not valid, we refill our categories list and we reload the create view so the user stays on the form and they get any validation errors, telling them what they need to fix. So where in this method, where should we write the code to save a new image? Where do you think we should put this? So we want to add a new product, and somewhere in this process, we want to process a photo. We want to upload a photo of the product if the user has chosen to pick a photo. So where in this method should that code go? Okay, could go under the context add. Any other suggestions? Well, the select list, this code only runs in the event that our model state is not valid. So Kevin, this code here is if we're reloading the page due to an error. So remember, this code only runs if there's a validation error. We would return we don't actually return a product. What this returns, if it's successful, is it actually does a redirect. Mike, we could do it here. I'm going to suggest maybe, to me, the logical place would be, yes, Lindsay, we are going to put it in an if statement, but to me, the logical place would be here. If the data is good, but before we save to the database, I want to put it here. And the reason I want to put it before the add is because I want to generate a unique name for the image. So that way, if two users upload a photo, or we upload two different photos that both have the name like product.jpg, I don't want to overwrite one file to overwrite the other one. So once we know the product data is good, I'm going to save the image and generate a unique name. And I need to do that before this line because I need to include that unique name in the product object to be saved. So I'm going to put it here instead. So process file upload, if any, before saving. So we can also save a unique image name with the product. So we can check if our image dot length is 0, that means the user uploaded a file. The image is not required, so if they don't upload a file, this code just gets skipped and the image is null, which is fine. So we need to set out a few variables here. We want to get the temp location of the uploaded image. So we're going to use the path object, which has a method called getFileName in .NET. Now Visual Studio gives me an error, it says it doesn't exist. We just need to add the suggested reference here, which is to system.io, stands for input output. So if we're going to work with files at all, any controller that's going to work with files, we need a reference to system.io. Second thing we want to do is create a unique file name using a globally unique ID. So the .NET Framework also comes with a class that will generate a long random unique string. And we're going to want to include that string in our file name. So if we have two different products, each one that gets uploaded, the picture that gets uploaded is called product.jpg. We'll make sure each one of those gets a unique one. It's kind of like an MD5, Jeffrey. I don't think it uses MD5. So we'll call this unique name equals. So I'm going to use the GUID class. I'm going to create a new GUID, which is a string. And we'll put that on at the beginning as a prefix to our original name. And again, in order to do this, whoops. So I'm going to concatenate. I'm going to generate a new instance of a globally unique ID, which will be a string. And I'm going to put a dash on, and then our original file name. So it will be something like abc123 dash mypic. So mypic.jpg will become something like abc123 dash mypic.jpg. And then we want to set the destination, file path, and name dynamically so it works on any server. So we need the actual file path on the operating system, but the file path is going to be different on my local machine and when I deploy this to a web server like Azure. So I don't want to hard code in the path of where we're saving it to. I want the system file path to be dynamic. So I'll create a variable called upload path, and we can use system.io to tell us what folder are we in currently. So we're going to get the current directory, and then we're going to append on a path. So I'm going to add to this in a minute. So where I want to save this is to www.root img, and I'm going to create a new folder in my images folder called Product Uploads. So I don't want these to go right into my images folder. I'm going to create a subfolder to keep all the file uploads separate from any other images we might use in the website. And then on the end, we'll append on our unique name. You'll notice also in my path, I had to use double slashes. The reason is a single slash inside a string, it's an escape character. So if I do this and take out my double slashes, I get a bunch of syntax errors because this is used for escaping. So because I actually need the slashes as part of my string, I've got to use the double slashes. So we're going to get the current file, grab the current name, put a unique identifier on the front of it. Yes, we need to create both Img and Product Uploads. So I'll go to my Solution Explorer, and in www.root, I'm going to create both of those. So I'll right-click www.root, I'll click Add a new folder, which I'll call Img. And then inside of my Img folder, I'm going to add another folder called Product Uploads. So now I've created the folder structure that I need. Thank you for pointing that out, Lindsay, that we didn't even have the Img folder. I knew we'd have to create the Product Uploads folder. I didn't realize in this version, some of my other sections, we had a couple images already, so we already had the Img folder. Thank you for letting me know. So now we want to use a file stream object in .NET to stream a copy of the temporary file into our Img product uploads using our unique name. We want to use a stream to copy the file to the destination folder with a unique name. So we're going to create a new file stream object in our upload path. And we're going to set the file mode to create. And then we'll just take our image and copy it to our stream. So this will copy the image to our product uploads folder. Now, I will put all the code in the chat in a minute, but we're still missing one thing. This should copy the file, but what else do we need to do before we save to the database? Now that we've generated a unique name for our image file. Okay, yeah, right. Lindsay, we could, yes, Jillian, that's what I was thinking, right? We've got to now take this unique name and add this to our product object. Otherwise, the file gets uploaded, but we're not attaching that image file name into our new product object. So set the product image property equal to the new unique image file name. So our image is going to be equal to our unique name with our GUID. And we need to do this before we add it and save. If we add the product first before we do all this, then the product is going to be added before that image name property is included. So it's important that this whole process runs before we call add and save. So I'm going to try this out. I won't put the code in the chat yet because I want to make sure it's working, but we'll go and try it. So I'll maybe grab some, I'll go to pixabay.com, which has royalty-free images. It's got free images here. Okay, so I'll download a small version of the photo. So I'll save the file to my computer first, and then I'll try uploading it through our website. Oops. So I'll just call this sweater. So this is a beige sweater. I'll set my category as shirts, and now I'm going to browse to my image file, pick my sweater, and let's see what happens. So what I want to happen, I want to have it create a new product, upload my sweater.jpg with a unique name to the images product uploads. And we also want that image file name attached to the new product. Okay, so that's encouraging. So you can see what one of these GUIDs looks like. It did generate a unique name. And now if I go to my www root, Img and Product Uploads, here's our image. So our code to save looks correct. It generated a unique name, saved it in the right folder, and also included this name in our database when we saved. So I'll put the whole method in the chat. Now, there are other things we could do. We could check the file type. We could check the file size if we wanted to in here. I think I will leave that for today. We'll also want to copy this code, and we will in a bit. We're going to want to copy it down to our edit as well, because we want to be able to change the photo, or if we created a product with no photo, we should be able to go back in and edit that product and add a photo to it. So if I go to edit here, there's no file upload. It just shows me this, which isn't super helpful. Yes, Jeffrey, you could put this in a function. That isn't a bad idea. Yes, we could put it in a function if we wanted to. We may do that. Not a bad idea. But now that I have it working, before we incorporate it in edit, we want to modify our index view. This isn't very helpful. We actually want to show the photo. And we'll need to scale it down. Obviously, we don't show the photo at full scale here, just a thumbnail. So I want to change my index view. If there is an image, we want to render it using an HTML Img tag. So I'll go back to the index view. And down here on line 47, here's the code that's displaying that image name as a string. So I'm going to take that code out and write an if statement. So if our item.image is not null, we want to display the image from the product uploads folder. Should add an alt tag. And I'm going to set a class. Okay, I'll use bootstraps. Actually, I'll just call it thumb, and I'll have to define this class in our CSS. So I want to set this to be maybe 75 pixels wide, because we just want little thumbnails here. So I'm replacing that image string where it's just showing the file name. That's not useful. We only need the file name so we can render an actual image tag. And then I'll go to my CSS file, our custom CSS, and we'll make a few, we'll add a thumb class where we set a width. So in my www root CSS, if I go to site.css, scroll down to the bottom, we'll just set the thumb class with the width of maybe 75 pixels. We'll see how that looks. Yeah, or we could set it as max width. Okay, not quite. Oh, Firefox caches my CSS. So my image shows up here. I'll go to a private window. There we go. So I get it at 75 pixels. So where there is no image, that's fine. It's blank. But where we have an image, it'll show it. Scale down, all those thumbnails will be the same size. So there's our image upload. We do need to modify, again, our edit. Because if I go to edit this right now, if you're getting a placeholder image, when you save, does the image show up in your product uploads? Do you have an image uploaded? Okay, it may just be a syntax issue. And so you may want to look in the database, Kevin, and see whether the product, maybe the image name didn't get saved along with you may have missed this part. So this code saves the image, but you also need this line. We need to then take that image name and set the product image equal to it so that that name gets saved in the database. You can look in your database to check. Right? So if you run a query in your database on your product table, so I'll connect to my database. Yeah, it may be a path issue. It's a good suggestion, Mike. Right? So it's Img Product Uploads, and then your item image. So I want to make similar changes to the edit so I could go back into existing products that we already have in the database from last week or ones I added earlier today, and I want to be able to upload an image along with those. And then we'll need to replicate the code or use a function in the edit to also process the upload. So I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer. I'm going to open up my product edit view. We'll make a few changes here as well. Right, we still have to fix our titles. It just says edit. We'll change this to a text area as well. We can modify our sorting in our controller. And then for our image, we want to display the current image if we have one, and then add a browse button to allow the user to upload a different image. So I'm going to change my headings on line 4 and line 8. We want to add our encoding type to our form, just like we did with our create. Our ENC type is multi-part form data, so this goes on line 13 in your form tag. So I've changed line 4, I've changed line 8, changed line 13. Again, you can see them by the green indicators on my page. I'm going to change line 28 from an input to a text area. I'm going to do the same thing, this ASP input for image. We want to change this to a file upload box. We also want to do what we did here on index. If we have a current image, we want to show it. So I'm going to change my input. Name equals image, ID equal image, and type equals file. I'm also going to put in here an if statement. If our model.image isn't null, we want to display it. I won't scale this for now. We'll just show the image at full scale. And then we've got a file upload box underneath. So I've modified this section inside the image area. We'll see how this looks. So this product has no image, so it just gives me a browse button. If I go and edit my sweater, which does have an image, it actually displays the current image, but allows me to go and pick something else. So those are most of the changes we need on the front end. We need to make some changes to our edit method in the controller, both the get and the post. We also still want to resort our dropdown. So we've changed our headings on line 4 and 8. We've added the encoding type to the form. I've changed my description to a text area. It's more user-friendly because the description might be long. And then we've changed our text box for the image to a file upload box, and also written an if statement that will display our image if we have one. So now I'm going to write the code in the controller so that we can upload an image when we're editing a product. So I'm going to go back to my products controller. We've got two edit methods. I'm going to pick the second one first, the edit int ID. This is the get. And Visual Studio gives us a nice comment telling us this is get. Down here on my line 108, this fills our category drop-down list. So I want to order this list. So on line 108, we want to order the categories by name. Kevin, the top parts again on which file, please? Okay, I'll go back in just a minute. So I'm going to add the order by here to my get products edit. So if I refresh this page, my drop-down list should now get sorted alphabetically. So now my list is sorted A to Z, but it defaults to the correct option for this product. So Kevin, you can see from the green which lines I changed. I've changed line 4, line 8, and line 13 at the top. Okay, make sure you have a separate closing text area tag. The inputs are self-closing, the text areas are not. So Jeffrey, it won't render as a text area without a closing tag. So that may be what you're missing. So now we want to add the code to process the file upload, but our logic is going to be a little more complicated. because I have this image. Maybe I just want to change the price of the product. I don't want to have to re-upload the same image. So if I change the price here, say I put this on sale, this is actually going to wipe out the image. If I save this, my sweater image is gone now. So we're going to need to take care of that scenario as well. So we're going to go to the controller, and in our post method, we're going to make some similar changes. So I'm going to take out the image from our list of bound fields. And I'm going to declare a form file parameter called image instead. Now I could move all the upload code to a function. For simplicity, I'm going to keep it inside of edit. I'm basically going to copy it and duplicate it because the logic can be a little different. So I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to grab this code we wrote earlier to process the file upload. So I'm going to copy that from my products create post method. And I'm going to put it in here in my post products edit. Again, if our model state is valid. Before we call update, we are checking if there is a new image uploaded. So this will allow me to put my file, my sweater image back in now. This is exactly the same code we had before. I've moved the image property out of the bound field list and declared it separately as iForm file. So this will solve one of our problems, but we still have another logic issue after. That's a little more complicated. So I've just copied and pasted that in before we call update and save. Exactly the same code as above. So this should allow me to edit a product, change the price, and also put a picture in. So go back to my sweater. I'm going to take it off sale price, put the price back up, and now I'm going to try and re-upload my image. So I'll browse, pick my image again. It's going to get a new unique name. So it's updated, so that's working. But I still haven't fixed the scenario where what happens if I want to change the price, but I don't upload a photo. If I go back in and change this again, it's going to wipe out my photo again. So I change the price, put the price back down and save. And now I actually get an error. That's interesting. Wasn't quite expecting that. So we need to see what happens. So it's saying our image is actually null. So maybe instead of checking the length here, we need to check if we even have an image. I'll try this and resave. Yeah, so what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to store, Jillian, I think this is maybe what you're getting at. We're going to need to store the current image name somehow. So if the user's only updating something else, it doesn't wipe out, doesn't override and wipe that image name out if they're just modifying other properties. So what I'm going to do in my form, my sneaky way around this, is in the form down at the bottom, I'm going to put in an input type equals hidden, and I'll say name equals current image. And I'll put in a value of model.image. So we'll store the current image as a string inside of our form. So if the image is already here and the user just wants to say change the price, we're going to check this value and make sure we don't overwrite it. So we'll need a little logic in our post method so it doesn't get overwritten. So then we're going to go back to the product controller and we're going to need to add an else and say, we can update the image name if we have a file uploaded, but if no file is uploaded, we need to keep the current image name. Otherwise, it gets set to null. So in the products controller, we've got to add our current image to our list of parameters as a string here. So I'll set up one more parameter, which is a string. So this will read our hidden field. So at the end of our method, we're passing in one more parameter, which goes in our hidden text box, which is the current image name. So add that parameter after your image form file. We could create like a placeholder image, totally up to you. So now in my else statement, if my image is null, we're going to set our product.image equal to our current image. So basically, don't change the property name if nothing gets uploaded. So let's try this. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to put my image back, and then I want to try changing the price without changing the image and make sure the image doesn't get wiped out, as I've already done twice now. Had the sweater photo attached twice. I'm going to change the price. Sorry. I'm going to leave the price, but I'm going to put my image back. My image is back. Now I want to change the price, but not the image. So I'm going to put my price back up. I'm not going to pick a new photo, but I don't want to lose the photo I've already got. So I'll save, and now our code works. It keeps the existing image in this case. Sure. You mean the view, Lindsay? So by putting the current value in a hidden field, our image won't get deleted if the user changes something but doesn't upload a new photo. So now it's pretty much working as it should. I'll put the modified version of the method in the chat. Okay, Kevin, you have to put your mouse over it and use Visual Studio to help you. The one other thing we should do here in the post method, if our model isn't valid, when it's reloading our category list, I'm going to add an order by here as well. So for me, that's on line 168. So there's our completed version of our post. Here's the whole method. So the parameter at the end, we've added a string for current image, and then we're using it if the user didn't upload a new photo. Now this image does not equal null. We probably should put that in our add as well. I think it will fail if I go to add a new product now. I will try it. I didn't actually try adding a new product without uploading a file. I think it will fail because we're checking the length on a null object. So I'm going to try this. Jeans. This is probably going to fail because I haven't uploaded a photo, which it does because our image object is null. So I need to make the same change to my create method. Instead of checking for length, we'll check that the image is not null. So that's in the create method. I'm going to change that rule. Instead of checking that my length is greater than 0, I want to check that my image is not a null object. So now I can create and update. Okay, for the thumbnail, on my index view, in the image tag, I added class equals thumb. And then I created this class inside of www.root CSS, inside of the site.css. I created a style definition for the thumb class. I set the width to 75 pixels.
So I have the same thing going on, but I'm getting full-size images on it still.
Okay, I had to go to a private browser because browser often caches your CSS. So if you
Oh, right.
right-click your homepage link and choose a private browser and hit refresh in there, it won't cache the CSS.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier too. Okay.
Right. Yeah, here's my original version. Yes. So even
Yeah.
when I reload in Firefox, it still gives me the full size. It's ignoring that CSS change.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to jump over to a private window so it wouldn't cache.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Oh, actually, there was one other thing. For my products page, it'll list the top of the column of like image, but all of the other column labels are missing. Whereabouts were they labeled within the project originally? Like
Well,
when
they're
you
labeled in the index method, and I wrap them in anchor tags so that it's clear that they're links.
Oh no, I mean before that, like at the top of your see how you have like name, price, description, image, and category?
Right.
I'm only showing image as a title for a column.
Because these are all here by default.
Okay, maybe
Did you
I'll try
make some
copying and
change?
pasting them. Maybe I missed one end tag or something.
You probably missed a tag in adding those anchors somewhere.
Right.
So there's a separate anchor tag around each one.
Okay. Cool. That should be easy then.
Yeah, they could also be in white, potentially.
Oh no. Okay. I'll check the site CSS on it too then.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeffrey, you can clear the cache if you like. That works too. Okay. It's 105. So there are, I guess I'll give you guys a choice right now. There's a little more customization I'd like to do with this. I talked about adding a bit of site-wide CSS. Probably will take us, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so. Um, it's 105. So what I'm going to suggest is we don't have a lot of time left, but we have been at this for 65 minutes. Let's take a 10-minute break here and we'll come back. So there won't be a lot left of class today, but our last part can be short. Okay, so let's come back at 1:15. Need to get up and stretch my legs and refill my water. So we'll come back at 1:15 and we'll look at applying a few other global style changes to customize the site. I will also push everything we've done up to GitHub. So if you're missing something, you can check your version versus mine. Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes.